IMG College. Live from Brother Jimmy's on Easton Avenue in New Brunswick, this is the Kyle Flood Show. Your chance to talk Rutgers football with the head coach of the Scarlet Knights.
Rutgers with 9 on the line. They're coming and blocked. They got it. He's going to go. Sideline 20, 10. Adios, compadres.
To be a part of the show, call toll-free 855-FLOOD-44. That's 855-FLOOD-44. Now we go inside Brother Jimmy's in New Brunswick. Alongside Coach Kyle Flood, here's Chris Carlin.
Back to football this week after a bye week. Welcome. Terrific crowd on hand at Brother Jimmy's, downtown New Brunswick, for this week's edition of the Kyle Flood Show. Eric LeGrand on assignment this week, a speaking engagement out in the Midwest, but he will be with us on Saturday for the game. Chris Carlin alongside the coach, Kyle Flood. How are you?
Well, I'll tell you what, it's great to be back. One of the biggest negatives of the bye week is no trip to Brother Jimmy's. We get bogged down with some recruiting and getting ahead in the game plan and developing the team, and something has to suffer. So it's our appetite and Brother Jimmy's. But it's great to be back, though.
Don't say our appetite. You mean your appetite. I made it
my
down
appetite and the appetite of the staff.
Coach, let's get into a couple of things. You know, it's been a little bit strange to have the schedule, the way things have worked out this year, in really having 3 buys. The kind of the way that's happened. Has that been a good thing? Is it something where when you're playing every week, you want to be in that rhythm, or for this team, in terms of getting healthy, other things, has it been a benefit for you?
We try not to look at it as a positive or a negative. It's just the schedule that the league gives us, and then we have to manage it as best we can and try to maximize every minute. I think the disadvantage of it is you lose a little bit of the rhythm of the practice week. And I think when you play Saturday and Saturday and Saturday, that becomes a rhythm to the season. Mm-hmm. That is a good thing in terms of your preparation. But the positive is you get a chance to get some guys healthy. And we're going to get a guy back in P.J. James this week who has been a very productive runner for us earlier in the season and has been out for a few weeks. But a guy we think could be really valuable down the stretch and maybe even more valuable with Justin Goodwin being a little dinged up.
At his time of his injury in the Arkansas game was leading the country in rushing with 573 yards. Pretty impressive stuff from Paul James, and we'll get into that throughout the course of the next hour. We want you to be a part of the show. That's what's important. If you're in attendance here at Brother Jimmy's, we've got our microphone set up right in the front. We want you to come up, ask the coach a question. We'll get you on the air here on ScarletKnights.com and on 1450 WCTC here in New Brunswick. You can also tweet us your questions at @RFootball for the coach and give us a call. 855-FLOOD-44. Telephone number again, 855-356-6344. Rutgers preparing for Cincinnati. Home affair this week at High Point Solution Stadium. Another 12 noon start, which I know is something that you like a lot, considering this is a team that practices in the morning and you like to get things going, not a lot of waiting around all day.
We really are a get-up-and-go program. I think our day during the season starts somewhere between 6:15 and 7:45 with our team meetings and our lifts and the other things we have going on in the Hale Center. And I think our players are used to that. They get up in the morning, they're ready to go. We're on the practice field before 10 a.m. every day. So 12 noon start certainly fits right into what we do.
Let's talk a little bit about, you mentioned P.J. James coming back. Health-wise, where is the team right now?
I think we're probably about where everybody is. We've got certain positions where we feel pretty good about our health and others where we've had to rely a little bit more on our depth. And sometimes it's a particular position like center with Patim having sprained his ankle, and other times it's a position like defensive line where we've got a lot of guys playing, and we're fortunate because they've gained experience through the year, and now they're having a chance to step up. And a guy like David Maluski has so much value because of all the different places he plays, and a guy like Max Asaka, who we haven't seen a lot of, who we may see a little bit more of this week.
With David in particular, and filling in both inside and outside, as you've talked about, shouldn't say filling in, playing extensively, both inside and outside. Is there a temptation, being a little bit dinged up, Darius Hamilton a little bit dinged up this week, to play him exclusively at one spot as opposed to moving him around as you have at different times this year?
I think in every game he is as specialized in one area, and then there's third down. And third down defense is like, and third down offensive pass protection, it's a different game. And you game plan it differently, you practice it in different segments, because generally the offense will do different things and the defense will do different things as well in their third down package. So on first and second down each week, he's really specialized in one spot with the ability to overlap if needed. And that's what we'll do again this week.
I want to ask you a couple of things. Go back about 10 days to the win in dramatic fashion over Temple at High Point Solution Stadium. Gary Nova really getting back into a very good groove in that football game. First of all, from your quarterback, what did you see after you had that week where he and Chase were splitting some of the number one snaps with the number one team, I should say?
I think the most important thing we saw was somebody who protected the ball. And as we've said before, the ball is the program, and you can't score without it. So the primary job of anybody who touches the ball, whether it's the center, the quarterback, the tailback, the receivers, tight ends, etc., is to make sure they protect that football. And I thought he did a great job. And some of the plays I was most pleased with in the game were plays where he pulled it down and ran. And then I think the second thing you look for your quarterback to do is be a good decision maker. And I thought Gary was an excellent decision maker, both on where he threw the ball, the location he threw the ball to, and even, again, on some of those plays where he pulled it down.
You know, it's amazing. I don't know that I've ever seen a player like Leonte Carew who, for whatever reason, when the big moments come up, he seems to be the guy that's, I don't want to say the go-to guy, but he seems to find a way. And that fourth down play, finding his way open, 9 touchdowns this year on 24 catches, and a lot of that damage done in the fourth quarter. Is there a way to explain it?
I don't know that there's a way to explain it above and beyond the fact that Leonte is a tremendous competitor. And if you can fill your team with competitors, then in the final moments of the game, they're going to want to either throw the ball like Gary Nova, make the block like a guy like Caleb Johnson who's sitting here with us tonight, wants to be the guy who has to make the block, who has to pick up the blitz, or make the catch, which Leonte has been in an unusual amount of those situations this year and has consistently made the catches, throughout the course of the season. And I have no doubt that given the opportunity, he'll do it again. But I also believe that given the opportunity, Karan Pratt will do it. Given the opportunity, Brandon Coleman will do it. So they're not the only ones, and we certainly could name more than that.
With Caleb and Keith Lumpkin on the left side of that offensive line, boy, it seems like there's not only a lot of confidence from everybody else involved, but the running backs, everybody running to that side. The last few weeks in particular, they've looked pretty dominant.
And then that's what you hope would happen over the course of a season. You got two guys playing next to each other for the first time. Caleb had been a left tackle in the past, so even playing with Bateem, he didn't play next to Bateem. And in the combination of those three guys playing together over the course of the season, we've seen improvement every week. And that's what you look for. And there's nothing more valuable in life than consistency. And consistency of performance up front is critical because unlike maybe some of the other positions on the field, a wide receiver may get 5 opportunities in a game to change the game. 10, it would be a lot for a receiver. But as an offensive lineman, you're going to have an effect on the game one way or the other every single play. And those players have to be consistent first.
Let's get our first question in from a gentleman here in attendance tonight. Sir, what's your name and where are you from?
Harry Joswick from Hunterdon County.
How you doing, Harry?
Hey, good to see you guys again. Coach, you mentioned before about Gary using his feet to get some positive yardage. Was that something that he just became more comfortable doing in that situation, or is that something that's been coached after his previous couple performances?
It's really something that gets coached with all the quarterbacks all the time. On every pass play, there's a progression that they have to go through, and at some point, when that progression gets to the end, it's either going to the running back or moving with your feet. And Gary's a good athlete. He's always been a good athlete. I remember going to watch him play basketball in high school. Now, he might tell you he's a little bit better athlete than I would, but he's a good athlete. He's a good athlete, and he can run well. And I think he did a good job of running and then getting down. We don't need him taking on anybody with his shoulders, and if he's got a chance to step out of bounds, he can do that too. And all those things move the chains, and all those become positives in the game, and they keep you on schedule. And for the play caller, in this case Ron Prince, being on schedule leads to more aggressive play calling, and I think for him, more comfortable play calling.
Do you think we'll see more of Gary using his legs that way?
Well, the first option is we want him to throw it, but it's more important to me that he goes through his progression. And if going through his progression leads to him not running this week, I'm fine with that. But if it leads to him running 5 times as he goes through his progression, I'm fine with that also.
Okay, thanks, Coach.
Thanks for checking in, Harry. We appreciate it. Again, if you've got questions for the coach, get involved with us right here. If you're in attendance, come on up front. And also tweet us your questions at @RFootball and send them to us, or give us a call as well at 855-FLOOD-44. One more on the game against Temple. Defense back to forcing some turnovers in that game. The importance not only of that, which I think is obvious, but just from a standpoint of understanding that it's something that they can get back to doing even when they haven't come for a couple of games.
And, the interceptions, you play against a freshman quarterback, and their quarterback's going to be an excellent player, and he's perfect, really, for what they do in their scheme. But when you play against a young quarterback, you'd like to think that if you play the defenses right, at some point he's going to give you a chance to intercept a few passes. And we got probably 3 opportunities, and we picked off 2 of them. And I think that was really critical in the game. And to do that and then avoid doing that on the other side, it's always going to increase your chances of winning.
Just thought of one other one. Ruhan Peel. That was really remarkable. And if I'm not mistaken, it was his first play on the field when he had the sack. Maybe I'm mistaken on that. It was close if it wasn't, when he blitzed from the corner. And then later to force the fumble to ice this game. First of all, when you ask a young man to make that move and just in the span of a couple of days, there he is out on the field, is it important for him to know that he's made this shift, but he can make an impact and he can do it pretty quickly?
I think it depends on who the player is. I think sometimes you move a player over to create depth, and that player may not have a role on one side of the ball or the other. He might be just playing special teams. Say, hey, listen, you don't really have a role on offense, but if you come to defense, you can have a role, and maybe in a couple weeks you'll play. Ruhan's situation is completely different. He had a significant role on offense, and was making plays for us. And to do that, to make that change and move him to defense, I would not have done that if I didn't think he could have an immediate impact, because we don't have any games to wait to develop a guy if we're taking him from the other side of the ball. And I felt like Ruhan could make an impact in a week, and for us that was going to be on third down and some of the sub packages, things that he could learn in a week and be really good at. But it only happens if you have unselfish players, and you have to have somebody that's willing to do that, to sacrifice for the best interest of the team. And he could have played very well in that role and not had a sack or a forced fumble. But he did his job, and because he did his job, he did end up with a sack, and he did end up with a forced fumble. It's a little bit of a better story, but regardless of what the production would have been in numbers, the fact that he did it and he prepared so hard through the week, I think speaks to him more than anything else. What
was it like for Ruhan when he got to sit in the film session for the first time and see that?
Ruhan's a pretty excitable character now, so there's no lack of enthusiasm when you either talk to Ruhan or you watch him play. So he enjoyed it quite a bit. Let's just leave it at that.
Let's get to our first phone call of the night. Mike in Cedar Grove joins us on the Kyle Flood Show. Mike, how you doing this evening? Oh, I think we lose Mike.
Mike has had enough of us.
We're just getting started. That's not a good sign. Hopefully we get Mike hooked back up here in a second. Okay, now through the course of the past week, how have you handled it with the guys in terms of your regular players versus some of the guys who are redshirting, some of the guys who aren't getting as many reps during a normal game week, in terms of balancing that out?
I think what this third bye week gave us a chance to do is really prepare for the last 4 games. And you certainly have to spend some time getting ready to play a really talented, fine Cincinnati football team, but when you have those bye weeks, it has to be more than just your upcoming opponent. And we know we've got 3 games to go after this week, and we were able to get healthy and get better. And those were our 2 goals for the bye week. And part of getting healthy was maybe some guys didn't do as much, who've played a lot this year and been a little banged up, and let them get their legs back and get better. Meant some of the younger players in our program, and a guy like Ruhan Peel, who now can learn a little bit more of our defense and do a little bit more and play a little bit more and be a little bit bigger piece of the puzzle for us. We were able to accomplish that as well.
Mike in Cedar Grove is back with us, so let's give him a second crack.
All right, Mike, let's do it.
What's up, Mike? Mike, are you with us? Oh, man. All right, we'll try to get him. We'll try to get him set up. Let's take our first time out of the night. We come back. We've got a lot to discuss. Of course, Rutgers is preparing this week. Big day on Saturday, not just in terms of football, but in terms of appreciating some of the heroes of our country that we really, this week, paid special attention to, but need to pay more attention to. We're going to talk about that coming up in just a few minutes. We are live at Brother Jimmy's in downtown New Brunswick. We want to hear from you, whether you're here. You can tweet us. Give us a call, 855-FLOOD-44. We'll get the calls working. I promise. Stay with us. This is the Kyle Flood Show.
Hey, everybody. This is Coach.
Might be the fan who wins a VIP trip to ESPN College Game Day. Find out how you can win at attbethefan.com. AT&T. Rethink possible.
No purchase necessary. Open to U.S. citizens and resident aliens of the 50 U.S. states or D.C. of the age of majority. Ends 11:59 p.m. Central Time, November 29, 2013. Official rules at attbethefan.com. Void where prohibited.
The chalkboard. Sweeps, screens. Every play is drawn up and studied. When you can visualize a play, you can execute a play. The same is true in business. The more visibility you have in your supply chain, the better your business performs. That's why UPS lets you track what comes in and what goes out. Logistics is our game. See how we can help yours at thenewlogistics.com. UPS, official logistics partner of the NCAA.
This is the Rutgers IMG Sports Network.
What's up, Rutgers? Y'all ready for some football? Brother Jimmy's in New Brunswick is your headquarters for Scarlet Knight football, as well as your home for the Jets, Giants, and all your favorite NFL teams. With over 30 HD TVs, we serve up all the NFL action on Sunday and Monday nights, with amazing food and drink specials all game long. So come on down to Brother Jimmy's and put some South in your mouth. For reservations and event information, visit us at BrotherJimmy's.com. Brother Jimmy's Barbecue, located at 5 Easton Avenue, New Brunswick, New Jersey. See y'all soon.
No matter what you earned your undergraduate degree in, an MBA from Rutgers Business School will help you build your brand and get you the skills you need to succeed in a tough job market. Rutgers MBA graduates get jobs. U.S. News & World Report recently ranked Rutgers among the top 20 business schools in job placement. With convenient locations in Newark, New Brunswick, Jersey City, and Morristown, Rutgers Business School offers flexible and convenient options to help you pursue your MBA full or part-time. Become part of Rutgers' passionate network of more than 30,000 business school alumni. Think MBA, think Rutgers MBA.
We are back in downtown New Brunswick. It is the Kyle Flood Show. Rutgers preparing to go 1-0 this week as they take on the Cincinnati Bearcats. See, I did it nice and clean.
I appreciate you buying in.
Didn't even mention the entire thing. You know, I saw one of your players who remained nameless at the basketball game last Friday night. Well, he doesn't remain nameless. Saw Quentin Goss at the basketball game. And I said, how you doing? And he said, just looking forward to going 1-0 next week. So they're all on board.
That's what I'm talking about.
And he's just going right after it. So
the 1-0 T-shirts are coming out next week.
All right, Coach. You mentioned getting Paul James back. Now, in terms of Paul himself going through practice, was there a time for him, just confidence-wise, to feel better about himself, to know, okay, I can get hit, I can go through this, I can do what I need to do to be ready for Saturday? Or does that come when he's back out there on Saturday?
I think it's a process that leads up to Saturday. And for PJ, he wanted to go in the last game. And maybe could have, maybe couldn't have. I don't know if it's even important to discuss that. But I didn't think it was in his best interest to go last week, so I was not going to play him. And what I wanted to see was him on the bye week. I wanted to see him run. I wanted to see him work with the trainers, with our strength coaches, and I thought he did a great job with that. And then I wanted, more importantly, not only do you want to see them work one day, you want to see how they recover the next day.
Right.
And we were able to do that. And then we had a practice Sunday night. We did a little bit more than we usually would do on a Sunday because we were coming off a bye week. And then he was able to do that, and then we got a chance to see how he responded. And then Tuesday we got a chance to see how he responded to today. And then today he went through a full practice and really didn't have any limitations whatsoever. So I feel very confident now that going into the game Saturday, he will be able to perform. And for him, getting in the game and doing it will be the last piece of the puzzle. But for me, he's already fulfilled any requirements that I was looking for.
Is there a I don't want to, you talk about pitch counts in baseball, things like that. Is there a carry count, so to speak? Are you going to limit him a little bit more, maybe split it up in terms of the backs with Savon, maybe even Desmond Peoples with Justin a little bit banged up?
I don't think that there's a pitch count because I think he's healthy and I think he's 100%.
Okay.
So I want to see him go out there and as I've said a number of times, no matter who the running back is, if they show that they're hot, for lack of a better term, and they can change the game or have a really positive effect on the game, I think you have to give that guy a chance to do that.
If I were to ask you to put a number 1 through 10 on where you would evaluate the running game at this point of the year, 10 being the best, what would you say?
I think we're at a 7.
Okay.
I think we're at a 7. I think we could be better. I think we could be more consistent. I think we've had some really really quality games, some highs, and we've had some others that we think we can do a better job with. I don't think the players would have any disagreement on that. And I think we're at a 7. I think we've taken another step forward to this point. This is a tremendous challenge for us this week. This Cincinnati defensive line will be one of the better front fours we see all year. They're excellent on defense. They're allowing less than 14 points a game, less than 18 points a game, I should say. So I think it's going to be a tremendous challenge for us. They're the number 1 rushing team in our conference, and they're the number 2 rushing defense in our conference. I know they're first or second. So again, this is a great challenge for us, and I think when you perform at a high level against really quality competition, that's how you have to measure yourself.
When you look at a team going through the season as your team has on the defensive side, I'll ask you the same kind of question because you talk about wanting to stop the run as your first and foremost goal. So where would you rate that if you could?
I think in terms of stopping the run, we're getting better. It's we've seen so many different types and styles of offenses this year. I don't know if I could just make a blanket statement. I think we're getting better. I was really pleased with what we did in the Temple game, and I will say something similar to what I just said about the offense. This week we're going to face the number 1 rushing offense in our conference, but also the quarterback with the highest completion percentage.
Right.
So it's a very unique combination that they have, and it speaks to the efficiency that they're playing with on offense. They're averaging over 33 points a game, but they're moving the ball with consistency because they can run it, because when they do throw it, they complete it. For us, it's going to be critical that we stop the run.
74% completion percentage for Brendan Kay this year, and he wasn't even their starter at the beginning of the year. They lost Munchie Lego early in the season to a leg injury. Coach, we're here. You know who else is always
Well, I knew we'd have at least one question tonight. I saw my man on the way in tonight.
Our guy Scott, once again, headband and all, ready to go.
Of course, the headband's 1-0. How you guys doing this week?
Even Scott has bought in. I appreciate that.
Great, Scott. How are you?
I'm great. My question.
Scott, are you related to Caleb Johnson?
I am not.
All right, I'm just checking. I didn't know.
My question is about the receiving core. You got Brandon, Karan, and Leonte all playing really well. Does that give you the flexibility to keep Ruhan at cornerback where he really, really excelled last week against Temple or 2 weeks ago?
I think it does. And I don't know if that's a permanent change. I think Ruhan's got a great career for us, and at some point it could be on offense and defense. And we'll make those decisions as we go through the year. But there's no doubt it would have been a much harder move to make if we didn't have guys like Leonte and Karan and Brandon Coleman and Carlton Agadosi, and then some younger guys like Andre Patton, Janarian Grant, who are coming along. We're fortunate that we've got a quality group of receivers, and you're right. It gives you a little bit of flexibility to make a move when the team needs it.
Awesome. Great. Thanks, guys. Good luck
you.
Saturday.
Great job, Scott. Good to have you with us, as always. We've got a tweet.
Big Caleb Johnson fan, that guy.
I don't know many that aren't Caleb Johnson fans. I'll tell you what, he has done an amazing job with many of his teammates up front on that offensive line and on lines on both sides of the ball.
I know who the number 1 Caleb Johnson fan is.
And that is?
Mama Keisha Johnson.
All right, I've got a question on Twitter. This is from Eric Orlando. Coach, how important is open field one-on-one tackling in this game? Cincinnati throws many flanker screens.
I think one-on-one tackling is important in every game. I think this offense is going to try to create those as much, if not more, than most of the offenses will play against. And I think he's right. They throw a lot of wide receiver screens. They throw a lot of bubble screens. Similar to Fresno State, not the same as Fresno State, but it's something we've had experience with. It's something we've been working very hard at, and I think it's something we'll perform well with on Saturday.
Our telephone number is 855-FLOOD-44. That's 855-356-6344. I'm told we have our phone issue fixed, but if Mike in Cedar Grove is out there, you can give us a call back. But we also need you involved. can I ask a technical question just in relation to the screens for a moment that you've seen at different times this year? From a layman's perspective, I don't know how to tell the difference between what's legal and what's not when those guys line up on one, say you have 2 or 3 receivers on one side in terms of pick. Some coaches call them rubs to keep it a little bit more on the legal side. What exactly is legal and illegal in a play like that?
With some of the rub routes that you're talking about, really what's legal is for the offensive player to run his route without deliberately contacting the defender.
Okay.
And that's really what it comes down to. So I think a lot of times what you see is 2 receivers trying to rub routes or trying to run routes that rub as they go by each other that are hip to hip, so that the defender has nowhere to go but around, which creates the space that they're looking for and the separation that they're looking for. And then you have other types where one receiver will post up almost like basketball,
right,
and the other receiver runs his route off the stationary receiver. So those are really the 2 different ways that you see those things.
Well, how difficult are those screens to defend? And not only just talking about the tackling, but just in general, because while they look like relatively simple plays, they can't be that easy to defend.
They're not, and there's a system to defending them. And I think the important one of the untalked about important things about defending some of those wide receiver jailbreak screens is your defensive line recognizing them, because the defensive line, once they recognize that they have not been blocked and that the ball is coming out, can retrace, and the path that they retrace on should take them right to the ball, because you'll have defenders on the perimeter who are defending the screens, but they're releasing offensive linemen,
right,
to go block those defenders. So they may have numbers, but the numbers that they don't have to block are the defensive linemen who recognize it. And I think that's one of the subtle keys to defending those plays is your defensive linemen recognizing it, putting their foot in the ground. We call it break foot, drive foot, and then retracing their steps to go make the play.
Okay. All right. Good enough. Now, with all of that in mind, let's talk a little bit about Cincinnati and their offensive side of the ball. We mentioned the quarterback, Brendan Kay. 74% completion percentage this season, 16 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, over 2,000 yards. As we said, beginning of the year, Munchie Lego was really the starter, but they were both playing a little bit. So give me a sense here about these guys, about Kay in particular, and what makes him effective as he is.
I think their offense in general, the strength of their offense in general is that they don't really have a weakness. And Brendan Kay was not their starter at the beginning of the year, but he has stepped in. He's somebody we played against last year,
right,
so we're familiar with him. And he's an excellent decision maker. They do a great job in their scheme of putting him in places to be successful. And because they've run the ball so effectively, and they run it really with 3 different players who've all carried the ball more than 70 times this year. So they have 3 different running backs. One of them's a thicker guy, one of them's a much bigger guy, and then they have a smaller guy that we've seen quite a bit of in Abernathy, number 1. We've seen a lot of him over the years. But they have 3 different runners that they hand the ball to quite a bit, and they've been efficient with all 3 of them. They've got an excellent receiving core. They got a solid tight end. Those are the things that really have allowed them to move the ball effectively down the field.
How different is it with Tommy Tuberville this year, if it is at all different from what they've done in the past versus when Butch Jones was there, of course, moved on to Tennessee?
I think offensively they're similar. They're running a very similar scheme, not completely identical, but a very similar scheme. And part of that is, when they had Munchie Lego as their quarterback, I think they want to run the quarterback a little bit more. Now with Brendan, they run him probably about 7 to 10 times a game. So they don't run him quite as much as they would run the other guy. The bigger difference to me is a little bit more on defense. Last year they were a little more pressure oriented the way we are. This year they play a little bit more base defense.
Okay, good enough. Well, let's take a timeout. We've got a lot to do over the next half hour. We want you to be a part of the program. We're going to talk about Rutgers and Cincinnati. And as I said, very special day on Saturday, as Rutgers will welcome our military in and appreciate Military Appreciation Day. I could spit it out this coming Saturday. So stay with us. We'll talk about that with the coach when we come back. This is the Kyle Flood Show.
Excuse me, is that your Diet Pepsi?
Sofia Vergara. Yeah, this is my Diet Pepsi. I love Diet Pepsi.
Do you love every sip?
Nothing is better than drinking a refreshing Diet Pepsi and just reveling in its crisp, delicious taste.
Well, you know what they say. If you love something, let it go. And if it comes back, it was meant to be.
So I should set this Diet Pepsi free and wait for it to come back. Then it'll be more delicious than ever. Would you hold my Diet Pepsi for me?
I'd love to.
Thank you. What happens now?
Go, get out of here. It can't come back to you if you're standing next to it.
Thanks, Sophia. I'll wait for you, Diet Pepsi.
The only thing better than an ice-cold Diet Pepsi is a free ice-cold Diet Pepsi.
Love every sip at dietpepsi.com.
This is the Rutgers IMG Sports Network.
Do you live and breathe college sports? Wish you could listen to the games anywhere you drive? Well, you're in luck, because at SiriusXM, we bring you the biggest college football and basketball action live all season long. Plus, with exclusive in-depth analysis, shows from legendary coaches, and live reports on College Sports Nation, SiriusXM is your college sports heaven. Welcome to the world of satellite radio. Find out more at SiriusXM.com.
When I say Xerox, I know what you're thinking. Transit fares, as in the 37 billion transit fares we help collect each year. No. Oh, right. You're thinking of the 1.6 million daily customer care interactions Xerox handles, or the 900 million health insurance claims we process. So it's no surprise to you that companies depend on today's Xerox for services that simplify how work gets done, which is pretty much what we've always stood for. With Xerox, you're ready for real business.
We are back. It is the Kyle Flood Show. Rutgers preparing for Cincinnati. We are live at Brother Jimmy's in downtown New Brunswick. Scarlet Knights with a big affair this week. We're on WCTC, 1450 AM in New Brunswick, and on ScarletKnights.com. And, Coach, I was out of town with the basketball team on Monday, but I got a chance to see your press conference online, and you opened up right away with, welcoming and wishing the best on Veterans Day for all of our military veterans, and we're going to honor the military a little bit this Saturday. What's the plan?
I think it's important for us to do it. We didn't have the opportunity to play, on Veterans Day weekend. So for us, we chose this game as our way to honor the military, and we've got some of our folks from campus here today. I know they're on the screen right now. We're the only university in the country that has all 4 branches of the ROTC on our campus, and I think it's something I didn't know about until about 6 months ago. And I don't think we talk enough about it. The sacrifices that they make, the sacrifices that all the people, the men and women in our armed forces make, so that we can live in the freedom that we live in this country, should never be taken for granted and should never go unthanked. And this is a very small way that we can do it. I know we've got the visor here on the table with the red, white, and blue, the Stars and Stripes Block R. And we'll have that same Stars and Stripes Block R on our helmet this weekend, just as our way to say thank you, to all the veterans, not just the ROTC on our campus, but really all the veterans worldwide.
And look, it's obviously something that we think about it more on Veterans Day, but I think in most people's estimation, every day really should be Veterans Day with all that they do. And I think that it's something that we've seen in particular the last couple of years at Rutgers where really it's become an important thing to do. This is not the first time you're doing it, but it's really become something that is a staple of the season.
I think it's critical, and I think it's important. And we have a gentleman by the name of Major Robert Movshin who spent some time over in Afghanistan over the last couple of years. He's a Rutgers graduate, and his wife and his children came to practice last year while he was there. And the reason we made the connection with the Major is because they had a Rutgers flag, and every time we won, they would fly that flag on their base, and we were very proud of that they were doing that. We got a great picture of it, and we put it up in the locker room every year around this time. And then the flag from the United States that they flew on their base, he brought that back and he presented that to us, and we're really proud to have that, and we take that flag on the field with us every game.
And, this year, not playing Army, but it's something that we've certainly seen before. Army, Navy, always go out of the way to really appreciate everything that those young men go through, too, in preparing to be a part of our military, too. Not playing them, as I said, this year, but still having a chance to honor the profession as a whole once again.
I think it's the first time in my career at Rutgers, the first time in 9 years we haven't played one of the academies. Yeah. And I know they're back on the schedule next year.
Well, Coach, let's talk a little bit more about Cincinnati this week. Now, they're a team that comes in at 7-2 on the year. They, as we said, are under a new head coach in Tommy Tuberville. What is it about them that has allowed them to have the success that they've had, in particular at home where they're undefeated? And then in the couple of games where they've struggled, where have they really battled against it? Where have been their I don't want to say, as you said, there weren't many weaknesses on offense, but what have they struggled with in their losses?
I think the strength of their team is up front. They've got an excellent defensive line, one of the better defensive lines we'll see this season, and certainly in our conference. And 4 of their 5 offensive linemen returned from our game versus them last year. And I've heard Coach Tuberville speak about that. I know how much I value that. And anytime you have that kind of situation, you've got a chance to have a good year. In the games where they have struggled a little bit, I think they've had some turnover issues. And we're not immune to that either. And if you turn the ball over, it gets very hard to win football games at the Division I level and probably at any level of football. So I think if you ask Coach Tuberville, that's probably what he would tell you.
We've got another question from a young man here in attendance tonight. Sir, what's your name and where are you from?
Timmy Garofalo.
Timmy, what's going on?
I'm going to take a guess, Timmy, and say you're from Middlesex, since that's what you do.
Right across the front of your shirt. What's your question, Tim?
What makes Brandon Coleman such a good player?
How much time do you have? All right. Well, this is what I would tell you. That, Brandon's been blessed with some tremendous physical gifts. He's 6'6". He can jump. He can run. He's got great hands. But really what makes Brandon Coleman as successful as he is his intangibles. He's a tremendously hard worker, very dedicated to what he does. He's an unselfish team player. He really is everything that you want to coach in a football player. He's got all the talent, but he's also got all the intangibles. And I think what happens at this level of football, there's a lot of players who have a lot of talent, but ultimately it's the guys who have the intangibles, the ones who are willing to work really hard day in and day out, that really become successful like Brandon Coleman has.
All right, Timmy, thank you for your question.
I look forward to seeing your haircut, Timmy.
Never!
That's right, Timmy. You hold on to it as long as you can. Some of us don't have the option.
I have a little bit of a history with it, in case anybody thinks I'm picking on Timmy. A little bit of history with Timmy. So,
with Brandon in particular, I wanted to ask 2 questions. With him being one of your offensive captains, is he a guy that, you talked about his work ethic. He certainly leads by example. Is that the primary way that he leads, or is he a vocal guy too?
I think Brandon's vocal when he feels he needs to be vocal. I've been around some players who are vocal all the time, and that's okay because that's their personality and that's how they do it. Brandon's not vocal all the time, but I can tell you this: he certainly leads by example every day, and when he speaks, everybody quiets down and they listen.
I know that's what I was going to ask you. Is by doing that, does it resonate a little bit more? Well, hey, he's stepping up and saying something here. This has got to stick with us.
I think it does because it's his personality. Anybody who leads in any role, you have to do it within your personality. And I can give you another example on the other side of the spectrum. We've got another captain by the name of Jamil Morrell who's very vocal. Mm-hmm. But that's Jamil's personality, so it doesn't have any less effect because he does it more often. People know, hey, that's Jamil's personality. He just happens to be a little bit more vocal, so you hear him a little bit more. But I think in both cases, they're very well respected among their peers on the team. And when they make a point, people take it to heart and they listen.
Brandon was named to the All-State Good Works team at the beginning of the year. What about his off-the-field stuff, Coach, that people maybe don't get a chance to see as much of, but clearly he does an awful lot of good out in the community?
I think there's a lot of things that these young people do that sometimes get publicized and sometimes they don't. But the one that is probably most pertinent to the discussion these days was Brandon was part of an anti-bullying campaign that went out to some of the local grammar schools last year, and I've got this image in my mind of a picture that he took at the school where he's holding one of the children at the school up on it almost by his shoulder, which is probably the highest that young person's ever been in their life when you're sitting up on Brandon's shoulder. And I think when a young person, somebody who's in grades 1 through 6, has a chance to listen to somebody like Brandon, who's so physically impressive when you see him and then you hear him speak and you hear him eloquate his message, you can only imagine the effect it could have on a young person.
Let's get into some of the defensive side of the ball, things to talk about, and certainly the secondary is one of them. You have Lorenzo Waters, who's a little bit banged up, and we've talked at great length this year about the number of younger players that you're playing in your secondary right now. As you said, the extra time certainly helps them to get better. How do you see, outside of Ruhan, who we've already talked about, guys like DeLon Stevenson played exceptionally well in his last game. Anthony Chaffee, who's done a nice job. Evaluate some of the younger guys for me and how they have stepped in and done the job. I'm really pleased, and I'm pleased because I see improvement. And you don't become an elite level player overnight, and that's not how it works. But for all the 19 first and second year players that we have who are playing a significant role right now, they're getting very valuable experience and they're getting better. And the better they get, the better our team is going to be. A guy like DeLon Stevenson played an excellent game last week for a guy who played his first game at corner. It wasn't perfect. Now, like anything else, he twisted his ankle yesterday, and we'll see kind of what his availability is as we get toward the end of the week. So now we've got guys like Anthony Chaffee has to step back in and maybe take on a little bit bigger role. And we've got Ruhan Peel already there, and Garif Glashan is already there, and Nadir Barnwell is back this week. So, we're going to continue to put the players on the field who give us the best chance to win. And I really believe that with the time we've had to prepare, our younger players will continue to get better and better. Take me into Jeremy Deering for a moment, because he made the move this year. We know what an exceptional athlete he is. How has he adapted to the safety position? I think he's adapted as well as we could have imagined. And I'm pleased with how he goes about his business every week. He is an excellent preparer in terms of knowing how to go through a game week and really learn not only our defense, but what the offense is going to try to do to us. And then Jeremy makes plays. And we've already seen him have an interception. He makes plays in the run game. He fits the runs the right way. And every week those reactions become a little bit quicker. Every week that trained behavior becomes instinct a little bit faster for a guy who's really only been doing it for about less than a calendar year. We've got more time to get your calls in. We've got plenty of time for some tweets as well. This one is from Marie. Coach, and it's a fairly good question, but I don't know that there's one that there's an answer to. That it is one that there's an answer to. Marie wants to know, why so many injuries this year compared to past years? I'd have to go back and look and see that there are more than there have been in past years. I don't know that that's accurate, to be very honest. I think when you have a little bit of a younger team like we do, I think sometimes the injuries become more publicized. Mm-hmm. When you have guys in the past like Khalil Glaude and Marvin Booker, well, if one of them's a little banged up one week, you have the other guy playing, and they're both fourth and fifth year players. Right. So I don't think it has quite it gets quite the press or has quite the impact that maybe it has when you have an older guy like Lou Toller, and you go from playing a fourth year senior to moving somebody over from offense to play the next week. I think it's a little bit more dramatic. So I don't know. Some injuries are just kind of freak things like what happened to Lou, and ankles are going to get twisted. Our players are taped and braced every day, and that's how we do it, just like everybody else in the country. But things are going to happen. It's a contact sport. It's a collision sport, and guys are going to get dinged up, and that's why the depth of your program is so critical. All right, let's take a timeout. We've got, as we said, more time to get your tweets in, to get your calls in, 855-FLOOD-44. We'll get to Joe from New Brunswick coming up in just a moment. The Kyle Flood Show, as Rutgers prepares to take on Cincinnati this Saturday, 12 noon, at High Point Solution Stadium. This is the Kyle Flood Show.
The chalkboard. Sweeps, screens. Every play is drawn up and studied. When you can visualize a play, you can execute a play. The same is true in business. The more visibility you have in your supply chain, the better your business performs. That's why UPS lets you track what comes in and what goes out. Logistics is our game. See how we can help yours at thenewlogistics.com. UPS, official logistics partner of the NCAA.
You may already know that AT&T is the nation's fastest 4G LTE network. And now independent research has confirmed that AT&T 4G LTE is also the most reliable. Whether you're connecting with family or getting the job done, you want a wireless network you can count on. AT&T, the nation's fastest and now most reliable 4G LTE network. Rethink possible. AT&T reminds you to never text and drive. It can wait.
Speed claim based on national carriers' average 4G LTE download speeds. Reliability claim based on data transfer completion rates on nationwide 4G LTE networks. 4G LTE not available everywhere.
This is the Rutgers IMG Sports Network.
Get a fresh spin on just about everything at Hess Express.
Hess Express, your one-stop express shop. Morning, noon, and night, Hess Express has you covered with more great meals, more great deals, more of everything you're looking for, all served up good and fast. That's what makes Hess Express Hess Express. So come on in for a fresh spin on just about everything.
At Hess Express.
Rutgers football fans, it's time to join the 1,200-plus members of the Rutgers Touchdown Club in supporting Rutgers football 365 days a year. To become a member, please visit us at RutgersTVClub.com. Your membership includes regular meetings with Rutgers football coaches, discounts from local vendors, bus trips and giveaways, and a whole lot more. It's time for you to show your Rutgers spirit by joining the Touchdown Club today. Also, please support the team by purchasing 50-50 chances prior to each home game in the stadium parking lots. Visit us at RutgersTVClub.com for more information. Go Rutgers!
Back at Brother Jimmy's in downtown New Brunswick on Easton Avenue. It is this week's edition of the Kyle Flood Show. We're going to get to the calls right now. Our man Joe in New Brunswick, and I hear him already. Joe, what's up?
Hello, this is Joe.
Yes, Joe, what's your question for Coach?
Yeah, I got a question, Coach. I think in general these new uniforms are kind of bad, but are we ever going to go back to wearing the white pants with the red shirts?
White pants, red shirt combo.
Well, Joe, I got to be honest. I appreciate your input. We did go back to wearing those uniforms for the spring game, and I think that was exciting for us. We enjoyed it. But these uniforms, I know Nike spent a long time in the development of these uniforms. I know our players are really excited about them, and I know from talking to the recruits that they really, really enjoy them. So I do appreciate your enthusiasm for our program, and I'm not going to close the door on anything. But for this year, no, you won't. You will not see those uniforms this year.
Any chance of a mix and match situation? Scarlet jerseys, white pants, something like that.
If we did it, we would have to go back to the uniforms prior to last year. The
Really?
uniforms we have right now, they don't match that way.
Okay. All right. Good enough. I've never been good style-wise, so I can't tell what matches and what doesn't.
Well, I don't know that my wife would say any different about me.
Coach, with coming to some of the other things that your team has been contending with this year, we talked about the injuries. We've talked about the defense at length. We haven't spent a whole lot of time, though, on the defensive side with the linebackers. And one guy in particular, since he's come back, Jamal Morrell, one of your co-captains, along with Jamil, his brother. Next to Stephen Longa, when you look at Jamal this season since he's been back, where do you put him? Is he back to the guy that we saw before he got dinged up?
I think he's back. I don't think there's any doubt that he's back. He had the interception last week, but that's not the reason. That's just an example of why I say that. Jamal is back, and Jamal is really important to us. And now to not only have Jamal back, but to have a guy like Quentin Gauss who's getting better, you've got two guys at that position, which allows you to play two and make sure you got a fresh guy in the game at all times. And I don't think you can understate the kind of football Kevin Snyder's playing. Kevin's really done a good job for us all year, been very consistent and running to the ball really well right now.
And he shouldn't be an under-the-radar guy, but I think in general this season in terms of getting the attention, he maybe hasn't because Steve has 80 tackles in the season. Kevin's right there with 61, not too far behind. What has it been for Kevin at the weak side spot, taking over for Kasim Green, that has allowed him to be successful this year as he's had plenty of experience before, certainly?
I think Kevin's the type of guy that we want to play football with. He's big and he's strong and he can run. And in our defense, the ability to run is a premium. When we recruit players, it's the first thing we look for is their ability to run. And Kevin is somebody who runs very well. He's a very smart football player. He puts himself in the right positions. But sometimes when you say that, people say, well, he must not run very well. But no, he does. And he runs well and he closes on the ball. And he understands our defense, having played in it for as long as he has.
Davon Jacobs, he's gotten plenty of opportunities to get on the field this year. Another one of your younger players, the redshirt freshman from DePaul Catholic. When you look at Davon, what are his strengths and what has he been able to really add to your defense when you've called upon him?
Davon Jacobs is one of the younger players in our program that is playing a significant role right now, but he's not a full-time player. But as his career moves on, he's going to become a full-time player. And he's a guy, when you look at him and you look at his body type, he looks like a linebacker, but he runs like a safety. And where he ultimately ends up playing will be decided in the future. But he does give us some flexibility, and that's why you see him on some of those sub-packages and against some of the spread teams, because not only can he line up on the back end and cover, he can play on the second level and run you down and make tackles.
Mike from Cedar Grove is back on the phone. Mike, thanks for hanging in with us.
This is your last shot, Mike. This is number 3 right here.
I'm here, guys.
Go ahead,
More
Mike.
times I thought you were censoring my question. Can you hear me?
We got you.
This is America, Mike. There's no censorship. Go ahead. Mike. Oh, Mike. Wow. Coach.
Mike's done. I don't know
so.
what else to tell you.
I guess so. We had him, and he just disappeared on us. And I don't even know what his question was. Let's talk a little bit about Cincinnati. Offensively, how is it the traditional spread? How is it run? And you said it was similar to Fresno. I mean, we've talked about a couple of different offenses this year that have been similar, but they've all been different in their own way. So I guess how is this different in their own way?
I don't know that some of their screens are similar to Fresno. Okay. I don't think their offense is similar to Fresno. I think Fresno wants to throw the ball a lot more than Cincinnati does.
They run a lot more out of the spread, don't they?
They do. And I think, their spread offense formationally and in the types of runs you're going to see will look a little bit more like Temple than it will any of the other teams we played. And again, none of them are identical, but you can kind of put them into categories. And they are lining it up and spreading you out to create the run bubble screen conflicts. Mm-hmm. That's what they're trying to create. And they will use the quarterback as a runner 7 to 10 times in the game to create some 2-back runs from some 1-back sets. But they are going to line up and try to run the football. There's no doubt about that. That is what their offense is based on. And I know I say that every week, even sometimes when an offense maybe doesn't want to do that. But this week we're playing against the number 1 rushing team in our conference. Stopping the run is going to be critical.
When you have the different guys that they do, and you talked a little bit about Ralph David Abernathy, who's only 5'7", 160 pounds. Then you've got a couple of bigger guys, and Tion Green, 220 pounds. And as you said, they use 3 different guys to run the football rather extensively. How does that affect a defense when you have those differing styles all playing a major factor in the same game?
You don't really see a difference in the plays that they run when they use those 3 backs. I think for them it just keeps a fresh back in the game. Mm-hmm. And I'm not trying to minimize the quality of the players those 3 players are, because they're excellent football players. And the Abernathy kid, he can run. I mean, he can run with anybody in the country. He's an extremely fast player. And Jose Williams and Tion Green, these guys are big physical backs that if you don't get a lot of people to the pile, it's hard to knock them back. So, they've got ways that they like to use them, and I know they like some guys more in the zone schemes and maybe some guys more in some of their gap schemes that they run. But you're going to see all 3 of these running backs run their offense. And I think for them it keeps a fresh guy in the game. But for us, it's about playing our defense. It's about fitting our gaps. It's about running to the football, make sure we swarm to the football, and get multiple people to the tackle.
One more question on Twitter, kind of in relation to this. From Eric, will Rutgers employ more DBs instead of linebackers? Does that change at all since they do run more out of the spread as opposed to when you don't necessarily play 3 linebackers a lot?
I think you'll see the personnel substitutions that we use on 3rd down.
Okay.
And that's where a guy like Davon Jacobs is so valuable, because he can play like a DB, but he can run and hit like a linebacker. So I think he creates some value in those sub-packages that you don't have to sacrifice one for the other. But on 1st and 2nd down, you're going to see us play our defense, and guys like Jamal Morrell and Quentin Gauze, when they have to go out there and play on the slot, they're going to have to play within our system.
One more timeout. We'll come back. We'll get the coaches' keys to the game, as we do each and every week. They might be similar. We'll see. And if you have a question, slide it in under the wire. We'll get it in. 855-FLOOD-44, 855-356-6344. This is the Kyle Flood Show.
Excuse me, is that your Diet Pepsi?
Sofia Vergara. Yeah, this is my Diet Pepsi. I love Diet Pepsi.
Do you love every sip?
Nothing is better than drinking a refreshing Diet Pepsi and just reveling in its crisp, delicious taste.
Well, you know what they say. If you love something, let it go. And if it comes back, it was meant to be.
So, I should set this Diet Pepsi free and wait for it to come back. Then it'll be more delicious than ever. Would you hold my Diet Pepsi for me?
I'd love to.
Thank you. What happens now?
Go, get out of here. It can't come back to you if you're standing next to it.
Thanks, Sophia. I'll wait for you, Diet Pepsi.
The only thing better than an ice-cold Diet Pepsi is a free ice-cold Diet Pepsi.
Love every sip at dietpepsi.com.
This is the Rutgers IMG Sports Network.
Rutgers University's Center for Management Development is an international leader in delivering innovative educational solutions to strengthen the business skills of our clients. We have a focus on today's professional with contemporary programs to meet the demands of an ever-changing business environment. Find your program today by visiting our website, cmd.rutgers.edu, and upon registering, use the special 10% discount code RURadio or call us directly at 732-640-1853.
Trustworthy, honest, fair. That's how customers have described the employee owners of STS Tire and Auto Centers since 1958. The ASE certified professionals at STS fix it right the first time and provide peace of mind with every tire or service purchase. Whether it's an oil change, alignment, brakes, batteries, complex repairs, or tires, at STS it's worry-free, guaranteed. So when your vehicle needs service or a set of the right tires at the right price, turn to one of the nearly 150 neighborhood STS locations near you. STS, it's a trust thing.
Back on the Kyle Flood Show, wrapping things up as Rutgers prepares for Cincinnati this week. As we've said, we've had these 12 noon games. I know every week we've had very good turnout from the fans, and this is no exception. You certainly need them against an offense like this.
We do, and this is an offense that is a no-huddle offense. They're not up-tempo all the time. They want to change their tempos. But I know that the crowd could be a factor, and we can affect how they communicate. And when our fans disrupt the other offense, it becomes a little bit of a feeding frenzy for us on defense. So I'm looking forward to seeing I know our student section is going to be packed, led by our man, Scott over here.
Scott's
ready to go
with the riot squad.
And I know the students are going to be cranked up, and I know the fans are going to be in there early and ready to go.
All right. You know what it's time for. Keys to the game, Coach. What do we got?
Well, I've said many times that football is hard, but it's not complicated. And this week, more so than most, I think it's very obvious to see when you look at the numbers. You know, the number one rushing offense in our conference, we need to stop the run. And the number two rushing defense in our conference. And everything for us it begins with running the football. And even if I know people say, well, Coach, last week you didn't run the ball for the numbers that you had in the other games, but you won. And they're right. And the reason that happened is because we had 8 20-plus yard plays, 8 big plays, as we call them. And that's a lot. And that's a lot to get in every game. Our goal is 6. So to have 8 is a significant number, and I don't think you can guarantee yourself 8 every game. So that's where the rushing really, really becomes critical in this football game. Turnovers. I think both of these teams have won games this year where they've protected the ball, and they've lost games where they haven't done a good job protecting the ball. So we have both seen both sides of that equation, and that's going to be really important. And then want to special teams. And I'll speak specifically about kickoff coverage because Rutgers and Cincinnati right now are both tied for first in our conference in kickoff coverage. So both teams have done a good job, and the special teams create such huge, or can create such huge field position swings, and that drive start number has proven to win games over time, and we want to win it.
Coach, we'll see you on Saturday.
I am looking forward to it.
Rutgers trying to go 1-0 this week, hosting Cincinnati, 12 noon. High Point Solution Stadium this Saturday. Be with us on the Rutgers IMG Sports Network and in attendance at the Point. We'll see you then. Have a great week, everybody. Kyle Flood Show next week, Monday night, 6 o'clock here at Brother Jimmy's in downtown New Brunswick.
You've been listening to the Kyle Flood Show, live from Brother Jimmy's in New Brunswick. The executive producers of the Rutgers IMG Sports Network are George Pine and Ben Sutton. Associate producers Joe Potter, Chris Ferris, and John Willie. Network manager Brad Law. I'm staff announcer Carl Shannon. Special thanks to Rutgers Athletic Director Julie Herman and the staff and management of flagship station WCTC.